This is Module 1, Lesson 5, titled Solving Problems by Finding Equivalent Ratios. The goal of this lesson, I can find unknown amounts given a ratio and a total amount. I'm going to be using tape diagrams a lot in this lesson. So make sure that if you need to pause the video at any time, go back and watch it again, go back and rewind it. Watch it as many times as you need to, and take good notes as we go. Example 1, big word problem to start us off. A county superintendent of highways is interested in the number of different types of vehicles that regularly travel within his county. In the month of August, a total of 192 registrations were purchased for passenger cars and pickup trucks at the local Department of Motor Vehicles, or DMV. The DMV reported that in the month of August, for every 5 passenger cars, there were 7 pickup trucks registered. How many of each type of vehicle were registered in the county in the month of August? Now, before we get to solving this, I'm going to highlight some key information. They tell us a total of 192 registrations were purchased. That tells us how many total cars were registered in that county. And if you remember from our goal, one of the things that we're going to be given is a total. Also, it tells us for every 5 passenger cars registered, there were 7 pickup trucks registered. Notice it begins with for every. That's ratio language. That tells us that we're going to be working with ratios here to solve this. Another thing that we're given in our goal. We want to use that information to find how many of each vehicle was registered in the county in the month of August. Part A, now this is before we get to our tape diagram. It says use the information in the problem and write 4 different ratios and describe the meaning of each. So if I take what I had highlighted, it gives us a ratio of 5 to 7. And what that compares is cars to trucks. For every 5 cars, there's 7 trucks matched up with it. We call that a part-to-part ratio, because it compares the part that are cars to the part that are trucks. Another totally different ratio would be 7 to 5. Not the same ratio. This one compares the number of trucks to the number of cars. Once again, a part-to-part ratio. Now there are other ratios that we can create using this information. For example, 5 to 12. 5 represents how many cars, and we're going to compare it this time. If we add the 5 and the 7 together, we get 12, which is how many total. So there are 5 cars for every 12 total vehicles. This is an example of a part to total relationship, or a part to whole ratio. Another ratio that we could have is 7 to 12. And this one would compare trucks to total. Again, another part to total ratio, or a part to whole ratio. Now there are other ratios, but that's enough for us to get started here. It says make a tape diagram that represents the quantities in the part-to-part ratios that you wrote. I'm going to use the first part-to-part ratio, 5 to 7. And that compared cars registered to pickup trucks registered. So if I'm going to draw a tape diagram, I'm going to compare cars to trucks. 5 equal parts cars. For 7, notice I started about the same size and the same edge. 7 parts trucks. Now the next question, how many equal sized parts does the tape diagram consist of? That would be all of these parts put together. If we count them up, there's 5 on the top, 7 on the bottom, which gives us 12 total parts altogether. The next question, at the bottom of your page, is what total quantity does the tape diagram represent? Well, this is given to us in our word problem. It tells us there's 192 total vehicles. So if I'm going to talk about all the parts, I would call all the parts representative of 192. Those 12 parts equal 192 altogether. Now the next question is on the next page. So what value does each individual part of the tape diagram represent? I've got 192 represented by those 12 equal parts. If I take 192 and divide it into 12 equal parts, and you might have to use a calculator to assist you on this, we get 16. So each individual part represents 16. If I go back to my tape diagram, each part here represents 16. Next question. How many of each type of vehicle were registered in August? So if I go back to my tape diagram, I want to know how many cars were registered. That's this whole entire top bar. There are 5 pieces of 16. So 5 times 16 tells me there's 80 cars registered. The bottom bar represents pickup trucks, and there are 7 of those, 7 parts of 16, and you might have to use a calculator again. It's equal to 112. So that tells us there were 80 cars and 112 pickup trucks registered in August. If we go back to our original question, notice they asked, we underlined it, how many of each type of vehicle were registered in the county in the month of August? We answered that question. 80 cars, 112 pickup trucks.